What's up, everybody? Blade and Mickey. It is Tuesday, about a minute away from the Titans' pre-draft press conference. I'm looking at the stream live, and nothing's happening, Blade. It's a beautiful logo that says Titans Draft and has a 24. It says GM Rand Carthon and head coach Brian Callahan will address reporters for a pre-draft press conference at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. That is supposed to happen at 1 o'clock, so 55 seconds away.
Yeah, week of the draft. Do you remember the pre-draft last year? Like, what happened? I don't even remember.
I remember I loved it, and I talked a lot about everything as much as I could.
Yeah, but you don't remember what happened?
I love it every year. You know this.
But what happened?
Like, what did they say? Or like,
yeah. Was it anything? Jackson probably doesn't know. I mean, bananas. Yeah.
I just remember never feeling like I really knew anything about anything.
But you were excited.
But I was super excited to find out what was going to happen. You know me, man. I love this. I'll be disappointed when the draft starts because that means it'll be over soon. I like today. Today's a great day. Today's a great day to talk about the draft. Literally, they're about to do it. We don't know what's going to happen. The anticipation. Because this
is like teasing us with this pre-presser, man. I don't know.
Think about this, man. How many times it's gone wrong? Panda, Caleb Farley, just the first round picks not sticking around, not getting second deals. Adoree and Corey and
so far Traylon.
I mean, I like this part. Everything is still good right now, boys. Just come on. Who's coming with me? Who's coming with me? I'm Jerry Maguire with a fish in a bag.
Buck is there for you.
Buck is there.
Buck is there for you. He left us minions here.
Okay.
Lucas and Bananas.
It looks like we are live. This is Chad Brinker. This is not Carthon or Callahan. Chad Brinker.
He's got the Brink truck.
He is pulling it up right now. Here we go, live.
Is preparing for the NFL draft. Heading into this week, we want to take the opportunity for you all to be able to speak with our general manager and our head coach, the two men that are leading our draft process. There are so many people that are involved across football operation to allow this process to be successful, and we want to thank those individuals in every single department under football operations for their contributions. I mean, to put it quite simply, it takes all of us to make this happen. But to build a sustainable roster in the National Football League, you must draft well. And we tell our scouts all the time that they get the opportunity to shape the future of our organization by the players that we ultimately bring into our building. You know, it's a very important job. And scouts are often the unsung heroes behind the scenes. To give you some context, the scouting process started back in June of last year, when we get the NFS data, the summer scouting reports, is followed by 566 school visits were made by our area scouts this fall. They had written somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,400 scouting reports during the fall, and they interviewed players. Maybe somewhere around 400 interviews were conducted throughout the process between the All-Star games, the NFL Combine, as well as pro days. And the scouts would tell you that's just our job, and I would agree with them. But I do think it's important to recognize them and their hard work, and we especially want to thank their families at home for all the support that they provide to allow these men to do this. So it goes without saying, there's a lot that goes into this. And we're excited about where we are. And as a group, you know, we haven't been together very long. But despite that, this team has just shown incredible commitment to getting this process, and our process is right. And we have worked really well together and worked really hard to be prepared for what we're about to do this weekend and beyond for that matter. You know, listen, we all know size and speed wins in this league. And we are excited about the additions that were made during the free agency process. we were able to acquire some players, some key players at positions of needs before we headed into this process. But as we all know, if you look across the league at the organizations that continually to rise and at the top, operate at the highest level, the championship type organizations, they ultimately build their football teams through the draft. And that is our philosophy as well. I know what we did this past offseason. I think the vision is static. It does not change. But the strategy on how to get where we're trying to get to, sometimes you have to adapt and have to adjust based off the circumstances. And we're able to do some good things, we felt like, this past offseason. And now we're excited about the opportunity to head into this draft. We all know it's not an exact science. We're prepared as we can possibly be. There's a little bit of luck that is involved in all this. But we're going to do our very best to head into this draft where we're picking to try to get the best players that we can get to really impact our roster for the long term. Roster building is a 365-day process, so it doesn't end after this weekend. We'll continue to look for good football players beyond the draft to add to this roster, but overall, I'm extremely happy with where we are today. I heard it said that football games are competed with schemes, but won by players. And scouting is executed with systems, but won by scouts. The point is, you win with people. Right people aligned on vision. So at this time, I'm going to turn things over to our general manager, Rand Carthon, and our head coach, Brian Callahan, to add additional comments as well as to take your questions. Thank you.
You're listening to the Titans live pre-draft presser. That was Chad Brinker, president of football operations, now Rand Carthon, and Brian Callahan speaking live.
No, I was just going to say, to follow up on what Chad said, appreciate you guys being here. Our scouts and our coaches have come together very seamlessly to put this process together. After we hired Coach in January and we went through the process, the first thing we did, and what I appreciate, Cali for, is just putting their main focus on not the scheme, not the playbook, but how we're going to acquire players and what's that going to look like. And so our coaches went all in on evaluations of players from free agents right into the college process. And so, not only our pro scouts, doing their part with the free agency process, but our college department and our area scouts led by, John Salge and Anthony Robinson, those guys hit the ground running. Those guys are actually downstairs now, working with the coaches to shore up the undrafted process. So appreciate all those guys and their works. And like Chad said, we appreciate their families. My 7-year-old son, he told me the other day that he loves his mom just a little bit more than me. And I asked him why. He was like, because I don't ever see you anymore. And so I stayed home. I told Callie, it was last Friday. I was like, I'm going to be late to the meeting. So I stayed home. I took him to school, and I asked him how was the scorecard, and he said we're back even. So I'm trying to gain pole position on Mom, after this draft. But it goes to show how much time, we spend away from our families in this process. Coach's situation, his family's away. And we encourage him to, get home as much as he can because that's important. We all want to do a great job in these jobs, but we all know the NFL stands for not for long, and our families are forever. So appreciate the families and the support that they've given us. And if Coach, if you don't have anything, we'll open up for questions one at a time.
Done for all intents and purposes?
For all intents and purposes, it's done. We're going to get Cal and I are going to get together this afternoon to kind of fine-tune a couple little things, maybe watch, a couple guys here and there to kind of settle some ties, if you will. But, yeah, by all intents and purposes, it's done.
When you look at your pick at 7, have teams been nosy, as you would call it, or are you guys open for business there?
Nah, it's still – people are nosy, and I think we owe it, to our organization. I owe it to Coach Callahan and his staff to, listen to all calls, no matter where they fall, just to see if it's anything enticing, if it's anything that's going to, blow us away to make us really want to, trade back. But we're just listening at this point.
Where are you, as far as prospects are concerned? Like, do you have ones that, hey, I don't care what the offer is, like this is a guy we would take?
Short answer, yes.
Is it a RAND decision or is it a consensus decision?
No, it's a us decision. Everything we do is us, and that's why we spend the time that we spend together and understanding where we are. A-Rob and I were kind of going back and forth this weekend on a couple guys, and, I texted him. I was like, hey, man, I think we're low on this guy, and in my opinion of watching. And so if A-Rob, he's going to come back with the facts. And he's like, hey, scouts see him here, the coaches see him here. And I was the high guy. So I was like, all right, maybe I'm wrong, And so it's a us thing. Last time I checked, I'm not devising a scheme. I'm not calling any plays. But it's my understanding of what he wants, what Denard wants, what Colt wants, on all three phases. And it's our job to go out and find that for him.
What was it like getting to that point, Rand, where everyone understands the collaborative process and how that works now?
It was instant. That's where he comes from, his school of thought. That's where I come from, my school of thought. And you've heard us talk about it a lot, those profile tapes. Those profile tapes, that meeting that we had with the coaches and the scouts is clear. The vision is clear of what you want at every position, which makes our jobs as scouts easier to go out and find it.
What happens? There are obviously elite level, positions like quarterback, left tackle, edge, those things. What happens when there's a prize prospect at a non-elite position, say like a Brock Bowers at tight end? How does that fit into the equation of evaluating versus, elite positions?
No, we consider it all, and like I said, we've whether we see it as a position of need or not, we know every single player on the board, but we also have to have an understanding of what fits in our system. Offense, defense, special teams, how we're going to use those people. And so although some positions may have higher value for some people, it may not carry the same value for us just based on how they're going to be used in our schemes.
Rand, do you feel any more at ease just going through your second draft now, kind of knowing how it all goes? I know you're involved kind of in San Francisco, but being kind of the head guy as GM, do you feel any more settled this time around? To
me, this year's new. Different system, different head coach. I was talking with Tom Jones, I think earlier today, and I was telling him this is my first draft, because this is a new way of doing things and how we're going to do it. So it's new. It's never unsettling. I've been up since 2:30 this morning, just different things pop in your head, and you can't go to sleep, and you grab your phone, and now you're researching to the point where my wife put her hand on my shoulder. She was like, just put it down. And so it's that happens, you know what I mean? And so I'm excited, about the challenge, excited to help bring, Brian's vision to light.
How do you feel like, I guess, the strengths of this draft match up with maybe the needs of the team right now?
I think where we feel we have needs, I think there are going to be good players there available for us, all throughout for us to address those needs. And, I feel good about our ability to be able to get players that's going to help us and contribute on Sundays.
With the O-linemen in particular, just when you've had them in the building, what traits, physically, personality-wise, have you guys been looking for to kind of parse through them?
I mean, we obviously, this game is about protecting the quarterback, so you want guys that can protect the quarterback. But I think the coolest thing for me, and I'll let Callie, follow up, with his answer on it. The cool thing for me is getting these guys in the building, these really, really young guys. Some of these guys are barely 21 years old. And to see them have the curiosity to want to work with, with Big Coach, with Bill. And it's kind of funny to me because, most of the young guys now doesn't have the same sense of history. I'm sounding like an old head like my generation, did. But it's cool to see them recognize him and what he's been able to do throughout his career and want to be a part of it.
How much would you like to find a way?
I'll just say the thing about bringing these guys in too, for us is we have the evaluation of the tape. We know what they look like as players on the field, and the thing that's the most important to us is what type of person are they, what type of football intelligence do they have. It's been really fun to get to know all the guys in the class that we brought in, particularly the offensive linemen. There's some really talented, really fantastic kids in this draft, and that part, when you bring them into the building, is where you garner the most information about who they are and what they stand for, and we want guys that align to our values as well. And I think that all these guys do, but that's been the enjoyable part, is you get to know some of these guys on a more personal level, and not just the school that they played for and where they come from. Just as their hometown, you get a little bit bigger picture for what they are as a person and a human. So that part's been great, and it allows us to make some educated decisions on what type of people we bring into the building.
Test football IQ. Like, how do you test that on the building?
Well, you can do it a lot of different ways. We don't, for the sake of brevity, I'll keep it. But there's a ton of ways. We test and quiz and install and come back and test it again. And some of the impressive guys that we've had Zoom calls with, you Zoom and you install a particular concept, and you bring them in on a 30 visit, and you see if they can recall anything you talked about. And most of these guys do a pretty good job of being able to recall that information. So, there are a lot of ways to do it, but we try to find every which way we can.
Is the Zoom process pretty seamless at this point for both of you?
Yeah. It's for us. It's the Zoom process really falls more on the coaching side because the scouts have done a lot of those interviews as well over the course of the process, and so the Zooms is like our chance to make sure we can connect with players. And it's a great tool for us because you used to have to go out all over the place to go see these guys and talk to them, but now you get a chance to. You can spend up to 3 hours a week. I mean, you could Zoom guys. You get multiple hour-long conversations over the course of the process, and it's a huge advantage to the coaches to be able to sit down and talk to them and revisit with a guy another a week later or 2 weeks later. It's a really, really good process to have. I'm glad that they've allowed that to continue because it's beneficial for everybody.
Last year, you referred to Peter as being like a blue chip prospect, as somebody you had determined to be that heading into the draft. How do you define blue chip prospect, and coming in, how do you label a guy as that?
So, in my opinion, a blue player is, genuinely like a guy that's going to come in day one and, like they say, plug and play, and you start him. A bunch of us in the scouting community, we talk that when you turn on the tape, a blue player is a blue player. You never have to second guess. You never have to, make sure you go watch the LSU game if you want to. Those guys stand out from the moment you turn on the tape, to the moment you turn it off. And those are, usually the guys that come in, that you plug and play them, they're day one starters, and they go on and play a long time in this league.
Do you guys think you have an emphasis early in the draft on trying to find guys that can come in and be impactful immediately?
I think that's always the plan, to have guys, particularly when you're picking them early, particularly when you're picking as high as 7. You hope that the player you draft is a player that you come in, you plug them in and get them to work, and they're starting for you. So those early picks, and even into the later rounds, you can find guys. I remember playing with a guy at the Colts. He was a 7th round pick, Antoine Bethea, and was a day one starter at free safety, a position he had never played before, and he was a day one starter. So you can find those guys all throughout.
Brian, it's only been a couple of days, I guess, but do you get a better understanding when seeing guys on the field about what they're about, and does that help you at all during the draft process?
Yeah, it certainly helps. I would say that we haven't probably done enough to influence where we're at in the process. I mean, we've gone through the draft process. We're pretty well done with it at this point in terms until we actually start. But being on the field with the guys has been great for me, just to get around them. It's our first opportunity to be on the grass with the players, coaching, interacting, meeting. We've been meeting for the last 2 weeks, but to be on the field, seeing what guys can carry over, how they learn, how they interact, it's been fantastic. It's been a lot of fun. It's the part that I've been waiting for. All this other stuff is all good, but the coaching part's the fun part. So an exciting week for us because we've got a chance to coach for 3 days, and then we go right into the draft weekend. And I would say this is probably one of the better weeks of the year of the offseason for me. So it's been great. But as far as they're being able to get an evaluation to make a decision on a player, there's so much to do still for us to keep building the team that there's no decisions that get made in this very, very short amount of time for us in regards to whether we need to move on or replace or whatever guys' roles are. There's a lot to be determined still.
I think that was Coach's nice way of saying he's tired of spending time with us and the coaches.
You talked about
your large scouting role with the
Yeah.
Bengals. And you answered some questions about your assistance as scouts in this process. You did too, Rand. Did you discover anything about your guys, for both of you, through this process, and how do you think they did?
Yeah, I think we got really good coaches that know how to evaluate. That part's been evident to me. It's been fun to see that side. Every organization is different. I've been a part of different ways, but the fact that I think our coaches have a valued opinion in the process, I think makes them want to do an even better job. And make sure that they're on top of the players they like and why. And when they get a chance to talk through those players with all the guys with Rand and the scouting staff, that they got good, researched, valued opinions. And when you're included in the process as a coach, it makes you want to do a really good job and making sure that these are the players that we want and we're standing up for and that fit what we're trying to do. And I think the process between us and the scouting staff has been pretty seamless, and they've done a great job. So I'm really excited about the work that they've put in. It's been a lot of work. And I just think that I've gained a ton of respect for them, not just as coaches, but as evaluators and understanding what they're looking for and what they want the systems to look like. And that part's been really cool.
Do you feel like that you'll have a chance to get back into the third round since you don't have a pick there? How difficult do you feel like that process could be?
I mean, it's easy to project trying to get back in or out of a round, but you got to have partners, right? And so we won't know if we have a partner until we're on the clock. And whenever we're on the clock, it's like I said before, we're going to listen to see where the value is. And of course, you'd always like to add more draft picks if you can, but you got to have a partner, and it's got to make sense.
Where are you guys on the depth of O-line versus wide receiver? Both of you, where are you on?
In the draft class, or on our team?
Draft class.
I mean, just from my point of view, it's a bunch of good players. There's it's probably more offensive linemen than there's been in past classes. I mean, this feels deep in terms of the talent that's available. And the same thing with the receivers. I think the receiver classes are pretty similar these days, where you're going to have a handful of high-end talent that's probably going to go in the higher parts of the rounds, and there's going to be some depth in the class that's got a lot of different options for what you're looking for in a receiver. So that part's been it's been consistent, I think, with previous years, but you're always going to find depth in the receiver classes. I think overall, there's always going to be good players available, and then this, I think, is a pretty strong offensive line class. I think we'll see where it all shakes out, but evaluation wise, there's some really good players there.
Yeah, I see the same. We were looking at the numbers yesterday. The numbers are pretty consistent. The O-line is a little deeper for us, in particular. And I think a lot of it has to do with what you're doing schematically and how these different players fit into your scheme. There was a time where college offenses were pro-style offenses, and then it kind of went more spread, and you're starting to see a little bit more of the pro concepts coming back. So you have a little bit more guys that fit, right into what you want to do. So, I think both positions are deep.
So what's your thoughts on the depth there? Are you guys comfortable in that, hey, you could find a starter outside of the first round?
Oh, sure. I think Rand said it already. You can find starters, I think, in every round of the draft. Depends on the position, obviously. There's not. Yeah, there's going to be starters that come out of, I would say, most of these rounds of the draft at the line position. Sometimes you can't project it. You don't know that that's what's going to happen, but I think there's enough good players the odds are in the favor that there's going to be some guys that can play that aren't getting picked in the top 25 picks. There's some depth to the class, and there's some good players that aren't going to go in the first round that'll probably play meaningful football for a lot of teams.
How much does NIL change? Forgive me, sorry about that. How much does NIL change how you scout players, the evaluation, as well as the conversation you're having with these guys?
Well, I don't think NIL has affected from the way we scout players at all. Honestly, that's a college deal. We've always paid players, so we kind of understand how that works. I would say from a non-field perspective, I think we're getting a more educated player now because they're used to dealing with high sums of money. They have a better understanding of tax laws and how those things work. So I think we're getting a more educated player because some of these top programs have people, there to give these kids more education, how to deal with money. So I think we're getting a more educated player, but that's more off the field. But to answer your question, it doesn't affect us at all.
Has it eroded the depth any at all? Has it eroded the depth any at all with more guys staying in college to take advantage of NIL that maybe would have been day 3 picks?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was only 54 underclassmen that declared this year. It's more advantageous for them to stay in school and make a little extra coin. Used to joke. It used to be a running joke around the league with these big programs. Used to joke and tell guys, "Oh, you took a pay cut, coming to the league." But now that's true. Some of these guys are taking pay cuts. You see what some of these college quarterbacks are making in the transfer portal, where if they came here, they'll be, league minimum guys. But in the portal, they're making $1-2 million. So, it's affected it that way. But again, at the end of the day, it's our job to unearth whoever can play. And it's up to these kids to do whatever's best for them and their families.
Follow up earlier. 2 blue players at 7. How does need factor into that? Is it a tiebreaker? Can it bridge the gap if maybe one's ahead of the other, but the need is so different for the lesser player that would make up the gap? If that makes sense.
So the way we set the board, we set it vertically and then horizontally. So there are a bunch of players that are on the same plane in terms of grade from a vertical standpoint. But if you look at it horizontally, there's a differentiator, in there. And like I said, we have a strategy. We know, what should be available for us, particularly in the early round of where we're picking, and have an idea of what we want to do. So the way we separate it is basically looking at the board, letting the board speak to us. But then there's other factors that go in, the football character, the personal character, the medical, all those things. So when you pick that early, you want as clean a player as possible.
Bill's had some very good success with right tackles, collegiate right tackles playing on the left. Are there guys amongst the top tackles here who you see as strictly right tackles?
There's probably some that are, yes. There's also a handful that I think are able to play both sides, and really most tackles these days have to be able to play both sides. They get cross-trained. Even the starters get cross-trained because you never know how you're going to have to move your pieces around. So I think it's you're not getting boxed in very often. The other side of it is that you still need 2 good tackles in the NFL because most NFL teams have 2 good rushers, and a lot of the premier rushers rush on the right side. And so there's value in both sides, I guess is the best way to put it. And there is guys that may fit better at right. There's guys that may be more natural at left. But that doesn't necessarily preclude them from any role as a left tackle or right tackle. You sort of determine that when you get your hands on them and see what kind of role they're going to fit for you. But at the end of the day, you need 2 good tackles, and that's the hope is you have as many of them as you can find, and usually there's some flexibility in the position.
Given what you guys were able to do in the offseason through free agency, how has that impacted the way you see the board going into Thursday?
Listening live to Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, the Titans pre-draft presser, Coach Brian Callahan and General Manager Rand Carthon addressing the Titans media live here on Blaine and Mickey.
Who's the best guy we can get at this point most of the time?
I think both things hold true. I think we address needs in free agency, as you guys all know, but it doesn't stop us from continue to add at those positions because we have to be able to build towards the future. You look at, let's use receiver for an example. You look at what those guys did in Green Bay, back in the day where they had, Donald Driver and they had guys where they continued to draft the Greg Jennings and the Jordy Nelsons and the James Jones and the Devontae Adams, and they continued to draft those positions. So it never left them, depleted. Right now for us, we're a new regime. We're trying to get our systems in place, and we'll, eventually get to the point where we're drafting a year ahead of a need, and we're not in spots where you just have to take a position of need every single year.
With all of the GPS data you guys have on these guys, when a player can't or won't do the athletic testing in the pre-draft process, can that hurt them, especially if there's a guy you see on tape, you see an athlete, but they don't test? Can that knock them based on having the GPS data?
It depends on the position, I would imagine.
Yeah. I would say, some of the GPS data, I've seen some, from the college where, they got a team will have 15 guys that ran 23 miles an hour, where that's not possible. You know what I mean? So we would have to cross-check the data. But there are some guys, and I know where you're going, and guys in particular, but, if you're looking at a guy and they play at a certain speed, if the guy ran 4.45, or if he ran 4.50, or if he ran 4.39, like, it's not going to change him, too much from that standpoint. And for us in particular, we rely on what we call play speed. How do you play? There are a ton of guys, and it happens every single year at the combine, where a guy ran 4.3, and everybody else, everybody's looking at their sheets, around the stands, and they thought the guy's speed was above average, and a lot of that is instincts, processing and being able to play fast. So we really kind of stick to the speed that we see on tape. But I also believe this, and I'm probably on the outside, outside of the box thinking this way. Times are changing. Times are changing in this league. I think these kids are starting to recognize, like the NBA, some of the power that they have, and I think they're going to start exercising it. I think this is the beginning, and I think for us, we need to adjust. We need to adjust to them, because it's going to be more of them than it is us. And so I just think we have to get out of our box and our old way of thinking, and be able to evaluate these guys, whether we see them at the combine or pro day or not.
Following up from earlier, for both, how much does knowing how a guy acts when he's got some money, not just how he spends it, but how he carries himself once he's got some bread?
Well, I've always felt that money makes you more of what you already are. So if you're a good person and you have a lot of money, 9 times out of 10, you're going to continue to be a good person. You're going to do things for your community. You're going to give back. And then if you're a jerk, when you have money, you're going to become a bigger jerk when you have money. I myself, I think that's all a part of the character situation. But, I also know adults who don't handle money well and don't, take care of their finances. So we have to be, careful of us as 40, 50, 30-year-old men judging a 20, 21-year-old guy, based off of that. I know myself, I joke with some of the players that we've brought in. Our scholarship check when I played was $888 every 2 months, and I handled that horribly, So I can't imagine being paid $20,000 a month, to play college football, how I would have handled that, I don't know how you feel about it, Coach.
The character is the character, I think, and most of the time you get a pretty clear picture on if the guy's got the right mindset and the right makeup and the right character, that money shouldn't necessarily be a problem. Not to say that we don't look at it and make sure that guys are on top of how they manage it and on top of, what they might be like, are some of the traits that maybe we overlook get exacerbated when all of a sudden they have money. Those are all part of the process, and it's hard to project that sometimes too. You don't always know. But you try your best to still stick to the character and the makeup of the player.
Have you guys knocked any high prospect over character or security concern?
We've had a couple guys that we've done the research on, and just didn't think that they would be a fit for our building, and not only our building but this city and this state. And so it's not a lot, but we have removed some players because of that.
Do you have guys on the current team that campaign for players, when you pass them the hallway, and whether they played with them or saw them, and how do you handle those?
Of course, every guy wants a guy from their alma mater, because that's where all the ballers are, whether they went, to a smaller school or the biggest school in the nation, their school has all of the ballers. So, I will ask some guys like, hey, like, what do you think? What should we do? Just to hear their opinions. And it's always funny, to hear their perspective, but it's also cool because they are in tune into what's going on. But you hear it all the time of, hey, man, you need to go get my guy, So you just hear it and you just laugh and shrug it off.
Rand say that he was up at 2:30 this morning. What's it like for you at night now as we get closer to the draft, being the first time head coach and having
it's been good. I haven't had too many of those. I've had a few moments where I've kind of woken up in the middle of the night thinking about something that, whether it was a particular player or a debate on a player or something like that, where, they just you're kind of grinding through all the different things in your head on what that decision might look like, and you go back and forth, and that's what this part of the year is, though. It's not unique to me or Rand. I mean, all these guys that are involved in the process have these scenarios and situations they work through, and it's it's a big part of the off season. It's a big part of the acquisition period. It sort of signals a little bit of the finality of that college process for us. It's over. So there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of people that put a lot of work into it, and just like anything you put a lot of work into, you think about it a lot. So you might wake up every now and again thinking about it. So yeah, I've had a few of those.
You guys already have an idea maybe of sitting there at 7 of potential teams from talking to people around the league, potential teams that might want to move in front of you and things like that. You kind of have a sense already of how you think things might shake out.
Yeah, that's a part of the process. I think every team has that process, and that's a part of the team needs that Brian Gardner and his staff have done, knowing who needs what, above you, below you, and all the possibilities. We've worked through all the potential trade scenarios, whether it's for us or the teams around us, and what it would look like. And so we've done that exhaustive process, but that's just a normal part of it. It isn't anything out of the norm.
Brian mentioned the idea of the tape is the tape. The evaluation's kind of already been done based off of stuff from the fall. When you have a prospect who might have missed time this fall or dealt with injuries that hindered their 2023 season significantly, how do you guys evaluate that player to fill in the gaps that might be missing throughout a full season of tape?
You go back and watch the tape before. I mean, we've done that a couple times on a few guys where, and even some guys that may be in this, because, these scouts spend so much time at the schools and they got such an awareness of the class 2 and 3 years out. And so what allows them to have some opinions is they'll say, this guy played a lot better last year. And, a lot of teams just focus on the current year in the process. And when you feel strongly or the evaluation was a lot stronger a previous year, you make sure you go back and do your due diligence. We've went back on a few guys and watched some of their tape from years previous to see what it looked like. What was the difference? Why was there a drop off in play? Was it injury related? Was it scheme related? Was it coaching related? Was it maybe there's a personal factor that's not out there in the world that people don't know that we obviously have some information on. So there's a lot that goes into that, and I think you do your best to do your due diligence and make sure that if there is a discrepancy from a junior to a senior year, that we do the work necessary to figure out what it might be, and whether there's something that would have taken place that would have maybe changed his performance, not just looking at a senior tape going, oh, this guy didn't play good, we don't want him. Well, where's the difference at? So we've done that a few times on some of these guys, make sure we went back and looked at junior tape and sophomore tape if need be, just to make sure we're not missing something.
What is the last one? There's a lot of focus has been on offensive line and wide receiver, but defensively, do you have a need where you have to get a starting caliber linebacker and or maybe a safety here? And how deep are those positions in the draft for you to potentially do that?
Yeah, we're always looking to find guys throughout. Callie and I, we were talking downstairs, and we're going to get to this point. But if you look at, and I hate to keep leaning on this, but this has just been my experience. You look at the 49ers roster, and you look at some of the guys that they have in as starters on defense or offense, and those guys were acquired in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round. And so, we've challenged the scouts, we've challenged the coaches to make sure that we have that board probably as fine-tuned as the top half, to make sure we know those guys, and not only know those guys, but know which guys fit schematically for exactly what we want to do. So we're going to be able to look to address as many positions as possible, all throughout, all of our picks.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. You got it.
Go, ladies and gentlemen, the entire pre-draft presser for the Tennessee Titans. A lot of stuff was said. We are getting tons of feedback in the F&M Bank chat. A bunch of you feel like, oh, this is all for sure at 7. Some people say, oh, this means Neighbors for sure at 7. We're going to take phone calls. I'm curious to hear people's thoughts on what they heard today. You heard from the GM. You heard from the head coach. You heard even a little bit from Chad Brinker to get things started. Phone lines open, 615-737-1045. It is Blaine and Mickey, of course, always powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors.
Hey, this is Blaine Bishop, and I'm excited to tell you about Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance, or as you may know them as TOA. And TOA has 29 locations and over 100 orthopedic physicians throughout Middle and East Tennessee to take care of all your musculoskeletal needs. In addition to their orthopedic clinics and urgent care facilities, TOA offers physical therapy, hand therapy, and sports performance training for teams and individuals at their sports performance centers. And as a former professional athlete, I know how important access to expert orthopedic care is. Whether you're an athlete, active adult, or just looking to get back to living your best life, you can visit TOA online at TOA.com. That's TOA.com. Or you can call them at 1-855-NEED-TOA. That's 1-855-NEED-TOA.
Blaine and Mickey, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. We heard from Callahan, heard from Carthon, we even heard from Brinker. I think it's time now that we hear from Larissa. She's on the line, 615-737-1045. Larissa, you heard what you heard. So how you feeling about what you heard?
Word.
Hello?
Hello.
Larissa.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Malika from Nashville.
Oh, Malika.
Okay.
My bad, I misheard you on the phone.
Joseph is going to get hearing aids, Malika.
That's twice this week. I've done that twice this week.
Malika, welcome in.
You can only do 3 per week.
Yeah, Joseph is going to go get his hearing checked after the show. How are you, Malika?
I don't think I can hear anything.
I'm swell. I'm terrific. I just want to say, Rand did what Rand did, being awesome. So did Brian. But here is my quick draft summary. We need 2 receivers. We need an offensive lineman first. We need a few safeties. Stop people saying that we need a running back. We can get an undrafted running back to pair with Spears and Pollard. And we also need a kicker. I'm sorry to rain on everyone's parade. You know, I'm a big Titans fan, but I'm honest. Nick Folk needs somebody to compete with. Things tighten up. Let's see what happens.
Thank you, Malika.
Oh, I bring somebody from the UFL for the kicking, just to compete. And if they need somebody just for practice, and then maybe that can lead into something else next year, which he's only signed a 1-year deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I would do with the kicking. She said they need 2 safeties. Well, yeah, they do, but they really only need 1 immediate, and they also need a linebacker. But she was right on point with the tackle and wide receiver. So yeah.
I feel like she was also right on point with the running back.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
Hey, man.
some good running backs. You can get undrafted guys now. Matter of fact, I'm going to ask Coach Mack today about a running back that I haven't heard anybody talk about. A guy named Tyrone Tracy.
Oh, I know about him.
What do you think? Is he drafted? I think he's a later round guy.
Yeah, he is.
He's a converted wide receiver.
Wide receiver.
Mm-hmm. And they got enough of those over there, right?
Well, so here's the deal about him. I told you every day I'm listening to all these podcasts. I'm reading all these mock drafts. I'm doing all this stuff. So everybody we've been so into this madness for so long now, Blaine. People are just inventing these. Today's mock draft podcast is about guys that I like, but I don't think anybody else likes. It's all stuff like that.
Right.
So today was, I listened to
undrafted guys probably.
I listened to half of it yesterday, half of it today, and it was, like 3 guys from NFL Network, and it was the My Guys in the Draft podcast. And one of those guys was Tyrone Tracy.
Oh, really?
And this dude was like, he may get to the 5th round.
Oh, no, I think he's, 5th round guy.
He may get into the 5th round. But as you told everybody a bunch of times, look, man, if somebody says they got 5th round grade on you, you could go in the 4th. You could go undrafted.
Yeah.
Once you get to that point, people's draft boards scatter in every number of ways.
It depends on what's needed at that point.
Yes.
Yeah, because I had a 4th, 5th round grade. And basically in today's world, I went 7th.
Right.
214. So you just never know once you get to that level, because all of them start bunching together and you're all kind of graded right in the same arena as far as grade. And then it's just about preference on team. So you just never know. But I was interested in him because he's from Indianapolis. There's another kid from Indiana, too, that went to Kansas, edge rusher, Austin Booker.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's more of a 3rd, 4th round guy.
I know him, too.
Yeah, so, some guys that nobody talks about. And I know everybody wants to hear all the star names, and we've kind of addressed some of those already, really, over this long period of time. But the crux of your team and the nucleus of your team is going to be players just like this. And if you accumulate a lot of these guys with a handful of star players, starting with your quarterback, then, you may have something. And I mean real fast. So we shall see if they do a great job in the later rounds, which I think in the past was Rand's specialty. If you talk to people in the industry from 5th round on and getting guys, that he even mentioned that in his presser. Because those are his guys that
from San Francisco. Yes.
The later round guys who became starters and did a heck of a job. So if they do that, oh my, because I think, it's easier said than done that you get a home run with the top 3 picks or 2 picks that they have at this point. But you never know. Sometimes guys get some money and moolah and they're just not as focused. So the character part is really big for me because what's above the head. One of the things that, I just thought about while we were sitting here listening to that presser is that, you get your chance in the National Football League with your athletic prowess. But the difference is between you and the guy who doesn't make it, it's what's above your shoulders. That is the difference. Now, whether you're a Pro Bowler and not a Pro Bowler, a starter or a backup, it's another thing. But that is the difference once you get into the league and how you process information. I know you could say that they, from the presser, that they want high character guys. But the first thing first, Rand said this. He feels like it's his first year being a GM. And I've said that before. Because why? New staff starts there. And he has pretty much full autonomy. He's the dude. So all blame, regardless of how much everybody else is collaborating, it's going to go to him. They talked about Callahan, talked about head coach, football intelligence, and he wants good people. That means he wants quality guys that are sharp, smart, and work their butts off. And guess what? They appreciate being in the National Football League and getting that opportunity. So there's a laundry list of things I have here, but those were the top ones for me.
Sure. Well, we can get into it more in hour 2, and Coach Mack's going to join us. We'll talk to him, and Tony the Stud is on the phone, and we can take Tony's call, and we can take yours when we start hour number 2 of this Tuesday edition, pre-draft edition of Blaine and Mickey. Phone lines open, 615-737-1045, powered as always by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. The road to the NBA Finals, oh man, it has started. It is rolling, and new customers on FanDuel can get rolling. They can go on their own playoff run with $150. Yeah, if you heard it, just place any $5 bet. You'll get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose, to use during these NBA playoffs. Give me the Bucks over Pacers. Yeah, I know it. But give me the Bucks over the Pacers. I like a scoring night from Dame, a big one, but maybe his under points total is a little high for my taste. Also like a big scoring night from Bobby Portis. I'll take his over. That's what I like for tonight, but it's the NBA and it's you, and you can go to FanDuel.com/Mickey and you can get started however you want to. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. You got to be 21 or older, present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. If you got a gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. It is the pre-draft Tuesday edition of Blaine and Mickey. The GM has spoken. The coach has spoken. Carthon, Callahan, Chad Brinker open this deal up, Blaine, for people who wonder just how exhaustive this deal is. For people who wonder how many guys do they actually talk to? Like what actually goes into this? Brinker put all the numbers out there for you. 400 plus player interviews.
Oh, my.
They did over 1,400 player profiles. They made 566 school visits.
Now, is that including? This is what they didn't have when I was coming out. The Zoom calls.
Yeah.
Like, that's included in those numbers there?
Has to be in the interviews, I would think.
Man, I was like, man, you could be interviewing players every other hour.
Yep.
Oh, man, that's a whole entire day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's you can be pretty thorough with all of that, man. Yeah, the Zoom meetings, man.
Do you remember if people ask you, like, would you be a cat or a dog? Or if you could jump into a river or a volcano, which one would it be? Did they ask you anything crazy like that ever?
No.
No?
No. I didn't get never one question. Like, the craziest question is, do you smoke weed? I said no. That was the Steelers.
Oh.
That's how I remember because they was the only one to ask me something like that. I'm like, no. I didn't fuck no drug test because I don't do drugs.
You're like, hey, man, I just took a whiz quiz.
Nah, I just said I'm not going to fail at drugs. It's just funny. It's just part of the course. I'm sure they probably asked everybody that.
Yes.
Or every other guy. But, yeah, I didn't even drink my last 2 years in college. So, yeah. I
didn't either.
Well, you never.
Well, I mean, the first 2 years either I did. Maybe we're drinking during the show. I don't know. Nobody drinking today at the Titans headquarters, though, because they're talking about picking draft picks. And people want to weigh in on this. 615-737-1045. Here's what we're curious about. People in the F&M bank chat are like, they're for sure taking alt. I know it. Oh, gosh, they're taking a receiver for sure. Oh, there's
Bowers.
Right. Oh, there's several people said, my gosh, this means they're taking Bowers. Could anybody tell me what they heard?
How did you take that?
They specifically brought up the offensive line a couple times, like without it being prompted, and then sometimes they were prompted to bring it up. So I'm like, it's just smoke screens. It's, they're not going to tell anybody what they're doing. And then they said something about wide receivers unprompted. Rand Carthon mentioned LSU just out of nowhere, and I'm like, Malik Neighbors, is he going to be there?
Look at you.
So I honestly, they didn't really tell us anything about what is actually going to happen on Thursday, but you can have fun with it because we got 2 days before we actually know. So I like to just have fun with it and say, you know what? Sounded like he's leaning Malik Neighbors at number 7. So that's who the Titans are going with.
Wow. Oh, bananas growing up right here in front of us.
They got to ask about how deep is the wide receiver and O-line class. Somebody said specifically those two things, how deep.
Yeah.
And Callahan said something along the lines of this is probably a deeper O-line class than others that you'll see.
He did say you can find starters at the O-line position in every round of the draft, which made me think.
Depending on development.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys are well-rounded right now. He said they can play on the right or the left.
Yeah, that was unique, too.
So those are the things that I'm like, are you trolling us? Or you?
He had to be trolling when he specifically brought up LSU, talking about blue-chip players. Had to be.
Yeah, they produce blue-chip players.
Callahan, or did Rand do that?
That was Rand.
It was Rand, right?
That was
okay,
Rand.
I was making sure.
Because that was the question. I think it was Sam Phelan of A to Z who asked him about blue-chip players. And he just, you're looking at, the guys from LSU. And I'm like, well.
Well, I mean, they do. Yeah, they have 4 or 5 guys predicted to go in the first round of both receivers and quarterback.
I don't know.
That's 3 right there.
Reading the tea leaves.
Oh, man. I think in the presser, I don't try to read anything in these pressers.
But you're right, though. I mean, they're going to have 2 receivers gone within the first 20 picks of the draft.
Right.
And the quarterback who will go 2. I mean,
they got a couple. I think they have a defensive lineman or 2 that could go in the second round.
Yeah, the D tackle, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always mention them. Yeah. You can mention LSU anytime you're talking about blue chip players. Although, oddly enough, go look at how many people Washington has in the draft this year. 3 receivers, the quarterback, 2 tackles. There's some
A
guys
couple
on
edge
defense
rushers.
too. Yes.
Yep.
Couple linebackers.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do they have a safety in the draft?
No,
Maybe not a safety.
they have a whole bunch of
But
blue
they got-
chip
I think
pro.
they got
This has been a heck of a
corner,
year for
maybe.
Washington. It was a heck of a year for Tony Stud, and he called in to talk about it. Tony the Stud, checking in with Blaine and Mickey, 615-737-1045. What's up, Tony?
What's going on, guys? How you doing today?
Good, man.
It was a heck of a year for me. I didn't know that. Where's my paycheck?
Oh, man, it was just a heck of a year, I'm sure. And, you're about to draft new players here on the Tony the Stud team.
Listen, you know how smart Rand is, obviously throwing out comments like LSU and things they do. And those guys in the front office, there are some really awesome people that we don't know about that know exactly where they're going with this thing. I mean, obviously the draft board, every team's got a draft board, and they have a list, and they should be ready 48 hours before 53 hours before the draft starts. I've stuck on this all off season with you and Blaine about Joe Alt and Ola Fashanu. I don't understand why everyone is Joe Alt chat. The fans of the Zone, fans of the Titan, everybody's on Joe Alt. Does anybody not listen to Greg Cosell? Does Greg Cosell not hold weight on NFL films and evaluating players? Because in my personal opinion, the things that he said the entire offseason on multiple radio shows, and he does things with different teams, and he talks about, he does, the Buffalo Bills, he does a big thing with the Buffalo Bills too, and talks with them on their radio show, and consistently he talks about how Joe Alt doesn't have that striking ability with his arms, and that, he's a great run blocker, but he can get beat or tend to get beat on the inside because he more likes to place his hands than strike with his hands. And when you're a tackle, you've got to have some striking ability because, look, if Notre Dame and Independent, Penn State, Big Ten, they're not SEC caliber. I don't think they're SEC caliber players in those conferences. I know they're great conferences, but when you get into a level like the NFL, which is greater than the SEC by 100 times, those defenders on that line have been playing in the NFL. And I feel like a guy like Fashanu, who is more, I think what he said was, more compact and able to get lower on his pads and has that striking ability. So for a player, when you've just gotten rid of Derrick Henry, where you say Joe Alt is more of the run blocker and Fashanu is more of the pass blocker and tendencies of the better players, I don't know why everybody's still on Joe Alt, because I think Ola Fashanu is the best left tackle in this draft. I'll say it until they draft him on Thursday, because that's what happened. Everybody listen, Fashanu is a Titan. Mark my words, you heard it here first. Love y'all.
There you go. He's calling his shot on Tuesday.
Well, I've been saying I thought Alt was having issues with his bend at the waist, and that is from his striking, as Cosell said. It looks like he's lunging. So I thought upside, I think right now Alt's the better player, and I said this before a while back. I think Fashanu has more upside for me. Now, how quickly can you get him to be better than Alt? I think Alt's going to come into the league and eventually just be a 10-year starter and probably maybe a one-time Pro Bowler. Is that what you want out of 7? Or do you want a consistent Pro Bowler, always elite that, garners the backside and can take anybody one-on-one? And that's going to be the interesting thing with Callahan and crew, on the O-line, who he thinks in evaluation, who can get it done. He may think he can get a better player even in the second round because he feels like he's, more athletic and he's more raw, and then he can coach him up. And then they take, whatever position, whether it's Bowers or a receiver in the first round, since it is a deep draft. So, I think all cards are, all bets are off. I think they're open to whatever happens because they don't know exactly who will be available. But it'll be interesting who will have the better career. So I kind of look at it like to me, everybody's referencing Alt as though like he's Jonathan Ogden.
Mm-hmm.
He is not that, and he is not even close. Go watch. He is nowhere near the athlete of Jonathan Ogden. Now, we're saying he's a Hall of Famer, but I'm talking about I played against him. I watched him. He's not that dude. He's a guy who's really good, probably just taller, Ruse level talent.
Mm-hmm.
And Ruse went where? Second round.
Second round.
See, so he's probably a little bit better than Ruse when he came out, and he played in Notre Dame. But I differ a little bit with the caller on Notre Dame. Notre Dame has some quality players that's done a really good job in the National Football League. So yeah, it's really about preference and style and who you feel like you can get there quicker, sooner than later, I guess. Because all of them need, coaching up to play in the league.
Sure.
There's no perfect player coming out, even a quarterback.
All right, Banana says we got to go. We got to go. Coach Mack will join us next. Jason from Franklin, if you hold, we can get you certainly before we close up the show today, and you can join Jason 615-737-1045. But let's talk to Coach Mack. What's going on in NFL war rooms right now? What's the board look like? As Rand said, their work is kind of done. The hay's in the barn. Let's get some behind-the-scenes look from Coach Mack next, including we'll ask him about some prospects like we always do. We'll do all that coming up next.
Hang on, Jason.
So maybe at the end of the day, you get in from work, you're just exhausted. Maybe that's it. Maybe you've been going to the gym and you look in the mirror and you think, how am I putting all this work in? I'm not seeing the results. Maybe you're just tired all the time. You don't feel like yourself. It's where Edge Peptide comes in. Edge Peptide will check your testosterone. Could be a testosterone level issue. Used to be people in their 50s. That's kind of what you associated with that. It could be the 40s. It could be the 30s, even the 20s now, where your testosterone levels aren't where they need to be. At Edge, though, they're going to run tests. They're going to get your levels on everything. They want to make you feel better from the inside out. If it's hormone therapy, it's peptide therapy. They even check vitamin levels for me. Turns out I needed some more B12. And right now, Edge is offering an everyday low price of $99 a month for testosterone therapy. Why don't you go to edgepeptide.com now or call them and make an appointment? Just go get everything checked out. Then you'll know, maybe this is why I'm not feeling the way I want to, not working out the way I want to, not romancing the way I want to, whatever it is. Why don't you call and make your appointment today? 615-724-1878. Call Edge Peptide now. Blaine and Mickey, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. Coach Mack joins us now. He's powered by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Coach, you drafted a lot of players in your career and had a lot of conversations about drafting players and still do that today. Do you kind of get a Christmas feeling on draft week? Does it feel like Christmas to you?
Well, I enjoy this time of the year, and I found out real quick when I got into the league, nearly 4 decades ago, that this is a huge part of success in the National Football League. I did find out, too, that it's an inexact science. I mean, everybody's got an opinion, and that's why each draft room, everybody, you pull in consensus opinions, and it takes a while to get there. And you've got different opinions back and forth, and nobody's ever going to be settled exactly on what somebody is, because you got humans judging humans. And plus, the other thing about it is that there's going to be mistakes made. I mean, I've drafted some really good players, and I've made some really not good decisions, but I didn't ever make a not good decision on purpose. And so that's what this is. I mean, this is an interesting time of the year. The National Football League has captured every month of the year, it seems like, but the draft is a huge part of it, and that's why I still do it. I still do it just like as when I was coaching, because I love doing it. And again, I know I'm not right all the time, but it's helping me in my broadcast career now that I've transitioned to that, and the fact that at least I know who these players are coming into the league when they'll be playing for different teams that the Titans will probably be seeing either sometime in the future.
It's interesting. Blaine brought this question up yesterday, and it just shows the power of the NFL. He said, what's the best week on the NFL calendar each year? Like, what do people get most excited about? And people were like, opening week. And some other people said Super Bowl week. And some people said Super Wild Card week. And others said the draft week, 100%. What do you think is the best week? What's your favorite week of the NFL calendar? Because there's so many that are amazing.
Any of them. I mean, look, because they're all important. They're all extremely important. I mean, the importance, I think, to people even, across the country, and of course it grows exponentially as the importance of the games go. But when you've got as many regular season games, the difference in the National Football League, guys, as you guys well know, than all the other major sports, is that you've only got 17 opportunities to play. In the NHL, in Major League Baseball, in the NBA, you're playing so many games every week. The whole 1 week between games thing, and the fact that, you've got 32 teams and you've got 17 weeks, and you've got it divided up into divisions. I mean, it's all compelling. Every week is compelling, and every week makes a difference, because then, the way that you draft it inverse order of how you finish. And so, look, I love all of it, or I would have stayed in it for nearly 40 years.
There you go, Coach Mack, in it with us, same time every Tuesday here on Blaine and Mickey, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford.
Well, Coach, you talked about it a little bit there, humans evaluating humans, and naturally there's human error, just like any other thing else in sports. But what has changed? Like, are there any advanced metrics that can help you do a better job in today's NFL to evaluate?
I think there's tools now. I mean, there's much different tools than, than when I started, but still, you've got all of these, everything, from the analytics to the electronic things that happen now. I mean, I've, gone in, when I first started in the league, I mean, you judged practice on how dead you thought your guys' legs were, but you had to judge that from experience and watching them practice and work. Now they've got a device they stick in the back of your jersey that gives you empirical data as soon as they come off the field. All of that stuff's changed. The analytics have changed, but still, Blaine, the thing that hasn't changed is the human eye of watching people play. But still, there's so much more that goes into it, rather than just the numbers and rather than just, how they play. You well know. I mean, you're a great example of it. I mean, a lot of it depends on what goes on, from the neck up, too, as far as to what, because I've said it many times, there's much more to being a professional football player than just getting paid every week to play. And so, to me, a lot of it is a a whole lot of it is the heart and the mindset that goes into it once you get into a professional level. So there's been so many more things and you should take advantage of all of them, and everybody does, but you still have got to be able to, it's still a people business, and you still got to be able to judge people. And sometimes you're going to be spot on, and then sometimes you're going to be surprised, both to the plus and to the minus.
Take us through an example where I guess you relied on your, let's say, favorite scout, and you were like, I don't know, but you still relied on him because he hit 9 out of 10 most of the time. Who was that scout, and who was the player that you missed?
Well, to
Probably
me,
can't think of one.
I drafted Anquan Bolden, and when he ran 4.74 and every. Yeah. But Steve Keim, the longtime general manager, at the time was the area scout, for the Atlantic Coast Conference along the Eastern Seaboard. And he would come in every day and tell me, Coach Mack, I know that all these numbers and people have got him down, but this guy is a football player. Mm-hmm. And so, the more that I studied him, I leaned on him heavy for that. And so, we'd made a trade, and we'd traded our picks were flopped in the round that we were going to take Anquan in. And so I really, really didn't want to miss out on him. And ended up, he was still there just because of the fact that he ran 4.74, and I leaned on Steve Keim for that. And I've given him credit, for years, because he was the guy that first brought it to me. He said, Coach, I know people are going to tell you, that he doesn't have enough speed to be a receiver, but I promise you, I've known this kid for a long time. Because that's what your area scouts do. They live with these guys years prior to the fact before they get drafted. And so, that was, that worked out pretty good.
Well, Coach, I'm going to ask you about some players who probably are mid-round guys. And, the first two guys I'm going to ask you about, they have some Indiana connection. They're from Indiana, from different areas, naturally. And it starts with Austin Booker, defensive edge guy from Kansas. And then the other kid is Tyrone Tracy, a running back there from Iowa.
Yeah, Austin Booker is an interesting guy. That you say, that played at Kansas, 6'04", 253, ran 4.77, tested really well. And so, it made you very interested to start watching, made me very interested to start watching tape on him. Let me get to my book here, and I'll go exactly on what I've got on Booker. The thing that I know immediately on him is the fact that he's going to have to get stronger. His body strength is going to have to get stronger for him to begin. But he's he's a big, long limb guy. And here's to me what I said. He lacks strength, but he doesn't have a lot of experience either, playing that position. But I think that just watching him, everything that you see on him in the tape, he is going to be a developing player throughout the league. His athletic traits and his body length, and also I really believe that he's got enough length and ability that you can develop some of the tools that he has. To me, I think he will come into the league. I have him as a late third or a fourth round player, but he comes into the league if you've got the ability on your roster to be a guy that you would put probably as you try to develop him into a rotational player on the edge, and then to develop into a starter, because his numbers, that got me very interested. On him, 6'04", 240, but he's got nearly 82-inch wing on him. He ran a 4.79, at the combine. But he's got at that length, he's got a 32.5 vertical and a 10-foot broad jump. And also, to me, with being that long, he ran a pretty good short shuttle at his pro day and a pretty good 3-cone. So I think this is a guy that is trending up. And, you hear a lot about floor and ceiling on guys. I think the ceiling on this guy, if you're going to be able to get him, because he played, a lot in a sub package there at KU, but in the bottom of the third or the fourth round, and you've got the ability to get somebody that you'll use as a rotational developmental guy on the edge, I kind of like him.
And Tyrone Tracy, running back, converted, wide receiver here. He played at Iowa and Purdue. He's from Indianapolis.
Yeah, he's a very, very interesting guy because, as you're right, he's first of all, he's a 6th-year guy. I mean, he's going to be an older guy at the draft, which doesn't bother me at all, because that's going to be the norm now, especially with the COVID year and what you're going to see. But he was a running back for 1 year. But the thing he was a wide receiver. He was a wide receiver at Iowa, starting in 2018. Then when he transferred to Purdue in 2022, they still used him as a wide receiver. But in 2023, he started, I think, nine games. He started 9 games as a running back. He led the team in rushing, and plus he's a good kick returner. The guy's a good kick returner. And when I see him, because he is inexperienced as a running back behind the line of scrimmage, taking the ball, he's a little bit indecisive but he's quick. He's very, very quick. I mean, going over his numbers, I mean, he's a 209-pound guy at just a little over 5'11" that ran 4.48, but he's got a 40-inch vertical jump and a 10.7 broad, and as you well know, and he bench pressed 20 pounds, so he's compact, he's strong. He's got some lower body explosion. His decision making as a running back, I mean, you can tell that he hasn't played running back very long, but he's got good contact balance. I mean, he's going to be a guy if you get him on your roster. I think he's a 4th-round pick. You get him on your roster, you're going to want him in there when you're throwing the football for sure. But I think this guy has got some capabilities of being able to help you as a runner, as a receiver, and I think as a special teamer and a returner. And I think that he's got a chance to make a spot, and that, to me, is the belly of the draft guy in the 4th round.
There you have it. Coach Mack giving us the Mack attack.
Coach, who's somebody that when this process started for this draft that maybe was off your radar that now you just love as a player?
Well, a lot of them were off my radar because I don't, we've got a draft department of 2 right now, so we don't have 30 guys that have been out there for 3 years looking at it.
That's a good crew, though.
When I started, I mean, there's a lot of guys that I did not know about, just looking at, but a guy that, because he's pretty close to here that I started watching that I like is I like Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky. Somewhere in the 3rd round, 5'10", 207 pounds, 4.56, but he's a real solid guy. Does a lot of things with the ball in his hands. Of course, there at Western Kentucky, they get the ball to him a lot of different ways in a lot of short areas. But he's got contact balance to him. He makes people miss. He's a strong runner type of a guy with the ball in his hands. He's pretty unusual as far as the way that he's put together. But I didn't know much about him. But the more I watched him, the more I liked him. Just because he's right down the street here in Bowling Green.
What did you look for most in guys in the later round of the draft? Was it one specific trait, like, gosh, this guy's got so much speed, or this guy's really explosive, or was there a specific trait or type of trait or anything that you looked for in later round guys?
It depends on the position. Positionally, there's a big difference.
Yep.
Because each position carries, has traits that probably need to be, if you're only talking about single traits that need to be dominant with each position. So each position is different. I mean, it really is. I mean, if you've got an undersized defensive lineman, then you're looking for quickness, you're looking for suddenness, you're looking for somebody that even with a lack of size can hold a point. If you're talking about space guys like corners, if the technique isn't really good, I mean, a great example is when we took Cortland Finnegan in the 7th round. I mean, he played safety. He played safety at Samford, but we brought him in because he was a physical guy. He could run. I mean, never backpedaled in his life, and you thought that you could get him in here and train him just because of his attitude and the speed and some of the natural ability that he looked like he had, and he ended up being a pretty good corner in the league. For quite a while. So you look for different traits, but I think the basis of your question, Mickey, is you look for different traits in different positions.
Sure. That's kind of what I was getting at. I didn't do the best job of asking it, but I knew you could answer in a way that everybody would understand because that's what you do. Coach Mack joining us here on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, Coach, we were talking about, how many Washington players or NFL quality type players in this year's draft, and I want to ask you about the offensive tackle Roger Rosengarten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Roger Rosengarten, which is he's an interesting guy. The first thing that I know about him, let me get to my offensive tackle page. But while we're talking about this, I will tell you this about Rosengarten. I know he needs more core strength to start with. When you look at it, I mean, 6'5", 308. Okay, let me just go to my page here on him because I've got notebooks full of stuff here. But he's a definite guy. I like that you've got guys that you're talking about that are probably going to be in that third or fourth round range. You know, when you start looking at him, I think Rosengarten is a guy that could possibly, you know, maybe because of the need for offensive tackles in this league, could get maybe to the bottom of the second. When you start looking at him, okay, it's not going to be something you're going to say, oh God, that's perfect with his pass protection, but he's got really good feet. When you watch him, he's got really good feet. And here's the other thing. To me, his role, if you draft him, I think he's a guy that's played left and right, so he could be a swing tackle, you know, to begin with. And then he's got to, once he develops physically, and when I say physically, you know, some of these guys come into this league that don't have the core strength, especially, you know, in the offensive line that, you know, down further that we're talking about. In the third round, but once they get into an NFL weight and nutrition program, he can develop some core strength. He might be able to develop into a starter, but I think you could get an immediate swing tackle just because of the feet that he has, and he's got an ability. His numbers aren't great, and of course I'm not a huge numbers guy, just being the end all to be all. But he's over 6'5". He's got an 81-inch wing. He's got 33 and a half arms. And the thing that I liked about him, I mean, for even that big and that long, you know, he ran a 4.92, but with a 30-inch vertical jump, and also his bench press for somebody that has that long of arms was 20 times, and that's pretty good. So I think there's some core values there to him that you can develop, but I think he'll be a swing tackle when he comes into the league.
Well, Coach, I want to ask you here with some DBs here. We got Ronaldo Green from FSU, kind of cornerback, safety type guy. What are your thoughts on what round he'll go in, and how does he project in the NFL? What position?
Yeah, Ronaldo Green's a kid from Florida State.
Yes.
He's a kid from Florida State. First of all, you know, he's a little over 5'11", I think, about 186 pounds. Ran 4.49 at the combine. But here's the thing that I like. And again, you talk about traits. Mickey was talking about traits. I always look for lower body explosion in athletes like that. Which again, I keep referring to you because you had a very, very successful career. I mean, you know, I'm sure when your lower body explosion was measured, it was good. Because it's sudden, quick, can launch, you know, can launch off the ground. And I'm not talking about having to just jump up. I'm talking about being able to move quickly. He's got a 37.5 vertical, 10-10 broad, so you know he's got lower body explosion. He's an average size guy, and when you look at it, he's not going to overwhelm you with his length. But what I like about him, and a lot of teams, I've talked to a lot of secondary coaches about him. I've got various opinions on him. Here's what I do like about him. He's a really tough guy. He plays tough. He's got. I like the way that he goes at it, and he's a very balanced player. And I think he will find a role. I think he's a fourth round type of a prospect when you're looking at him. He's a very, very aggressive guy. And as you well know, having played back there when you're young and you learn, sometimes you've got to learn to let it slow down to you. Not that you play slow. You just got to learn to be able to believe. And it's always eyes before feet when you're reacting back there, you know, in the back end. So you understand what you're seeing. But I like his physicality and I like his lower body explosion. So I think he's a fourth round player.
Another player real quick, Nate Wiggins, cornerback from Clemson.
Yeah, Nate Wiggins is extremely fast. Doesn't weigh a lot, 175 pounds. He's going to be able to run with anybody. I think he's a decent press corner. Nate Wiggins he's not a great tackler. You don't see an overabundance of physicality in him when he's tackling. But as far as a cover guy, and plus he ran 4-0. You know, at the combine. I mean, the guy can run.
He's fast.
So, I mean, he can. You know, there's some guys that can run, and then there's guys that can run. You know, and this guy can run. So, you know, you're looking for speed. As I say, he's not the biggest guy. He's not the most physical player, but there's a place for him.
Coach Mack, there's a place for you every Tuesday right here on Blaine and Mickey. We appreciate the time. Thank you, sir.
Guys, I love it because we talk real ball. We're close to it now. So
Yeah.
all of this talk and all of this guessing, we're going to find out what people around the league think, aren't we?
Real soon. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you,
doubt.
Coach.
Appreciate
See you
it, Coach.
guys.
Yes, sir. The one and only Coach Mack. Always a good time. All right. This got referenced in the Titans pre-draft presser today, how NIL has affected underclassmen declaring for the draft.
Right.
I have the numbers written down. This will blow people's mind. This will blow your mind how it's affected underclassmen declaring for the draft. If it tells you what people are making in college, we'll give you that next.
Whoa.
Yep.
Allergy season is upon us, and pollen is in the air. But fear not, Kool-Ray has your back. And a $49 tune-up will have your HVAC system running smoothly, keeping allergens at bay. Plus, enjoy 10% off indoor air quality products for an extra boost. So are you ready to say goodbye to your old HVAC system? Well, with Kool-Ray, it's out with the old and in with the new. And we'll even give you $1,000 for your old system when you upgrade with us. That's right, we'll pay you to breathe easier. But let's not overlook the little things that keep your home humming. Our $93 drain cleaning service ensures your pipes stay clear and stress levels low. And if you can't clear your drain, well, that's on us. Consider our way of keeping things flowing smoothly. So with Tennessee's unpredictable weather, it's crucial to be prepared. That's where our whole home generators come in. With $1,500 off, you can keep your home powered up, rain or shine. So don't let Mother Nature catch you off guard. Let Kool-Ray be your beacon of reliability. So Tennessee, are you ready to embrace spring with confidence? Give Kool-Ray a call today and let us make this season a breeze. We're your partner in comfort no matter the season. So here's to spring filled with sunshine, smiles, and stress-free living. Kool-Ray, keeping Tennessee cool, plumbing right, and lights bright. So visit KoolRay.com to take control of your home's comfort. That's KoolRay.com.
Blaine and Mickey saw this from Albert Breer on how NIL is changing the draft for underclassmen. The number of underclassmen declaring this year was 58, which that's what Rand said. That's 3 years after the number hit an all-time high of 130, and for 5 years it was at least 100 people.
Mm.
So this is 50-plus people who are like, nah, I'll just stay where I am. I'm doing pretty good.
Mm.
Because guys used to be like, hey, man, I can go this year. I know I'm going to be a 6th-round pick, but I got to go, man. I got to try to get some money. Family needs it, got needs, medical bills, whatever. And guys now can.
What's the base salary for like a 6th-round pick? A 5th and after. What's it, 300?
No, it's probably around 500 now.
500 now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, literally, I think if you make a team, your first year is right around 500. Maybe it's 480 or something like that.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, because the veteran is $1 million, right?
Yep.
Right.
So it's like 480 to 570 to 650 to 740. I want to say that was basically what it was in the last.
You checking that there, Bananas?
He'll double check my numbers.
Minimum.
I could be wrong.
For late round picks. Yeah, because so you're saying most of the guys are saying, nah, I'm making more money in college.
Yeah, because especially if you go to a big program. I mean, you might be a 6th-round NFL pick, but you may be a really good player at a power program, or you may be the best player on a group of, well, not group of 5. I guess there's still group of 5. It's just a power 4 and a group of 5. But you may be killing it in your town that you play in.
I think a lot of people say the benefits is, I miss out on 1 year in the NFL, but I make more money and I get to increase. But they must remember you also can decrease your value by your play.
Yep.
So a lot of them believe, nah, man, I'm not a 5th, 6th. Man, I'm top 4 rounds for sure, man. I don't know. I'm at least 3rd-round pick. That's how the guys are thinking. So there's a lot of incentive now to stay in. And I wasn't ever worried about, I know everybody talks about the age thing. That was never a worry for me. And here's the reason why. I'm only, the first contract, I don't care what age you are. Because why does it matter? Because I'm going to still get you within this 3-4 year window, and you're still, so for me, as a draft person, I'm like, I could care less. We just not signing him for that second deal.
Sure.
So I got you. I got a mature player, hopefully a little more advanced, and he plays better. So I feel like I win. And then I'll wait 3-4 years and draft another guy like that if I have to. I mean, the number and age never bothered me one iota.
Yeah, it doesn't me either.
And that, that was reason, I guess, when the COVID guys in 2020 and all that happened. So, yeah, they got an extra year. It's kind of messed up really high school players and their opportunities to get to play, as well as some of them not even getting scholarships. The middle of the road guys who are, 3 stars and, the guys who are fringe players. It's tough for those guys, man.
Let's take Jason's call real quick before we sign off for today. Jason from Franklin will finish us off on Blaine and Mickey. What's up, Jason?
Hey, guys. Appreciate you taking my call. Love the show. I know we're pressed for time, so I'll try to be quick. I got a comment and a question. My comment is that, if I'm the Titans, I'm taking Malik Neighbors all day if he's there. And the reason why is because DeAndre Hopkins and Burks most likely are not going to be here after this year. So then you have, Ridley and Neighbors for the years to come. And I say Bill Callahan, as soon as he got off that freaking plane, he should have been at Nicholas Petit Frere's driveway doing drills. And same with Skoronski. So you got those two guys. Trust in Bill, trust in the process. We're going to be okay. Take Malik Neighbors. That's my comment. My question is, Rand said something about ranking players north and south, and he mentioned something about horizontal breaking a tie kind of thing when they're narrowing down certain picks. If you guys could briefly talk on that before the end of the show, I would greatly appreciate it. What does that horizontal mean as far as like breaking that tie?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Love the show.
Yeah, that's a Coach Mack question for me. You guys got it? I can tell you.
I've had Rhett try to explain this to me a couple times. and I'm still not quite grasping. Like, I know he says it's a simple concept. The visual of it is kind of weird. So when they group players, so they group them in two directions. So they group them vertically, and then they group them horizontally, and then they break them up into pods in terms of there would be a group of players in a certain pod, and then that pod is over the next pod. I haven't seen a visual of it yet, but it'd probably be a good question to ask Rhett.
Here's one explanation for it. The vertical board is more focused on value, and the horizontal board is more on team needs.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, using the vertical board method resulting in Ozzie Newsome drafting Ed Reed ahead of Lito Shepherd because he stayed true to his board.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an example.
Who I played with at the Pro Bowl and played with his teammate, Lito Shepherd in Philly.
Yeah, Blaine is the Kevin Bacon
Watch this.
that era of
Lito
NFL.
Shepherd didn't even hardly play high school football, and he went to Florida.
Oh, gosh.
I just looked at him. We're sitting here telling me this on the way to a game on a bus. I said, what? This time out, these dudes are super duper athletes, man. Smooth. He played corner. Like, how long you had to train to play corner? We did it in 1 year.
Quick news for the Preds, Game 2 tonight. The Canucks starting goaltender Thatcher D'Amico is out. The Preds will be facing a backup goalie tonight.
Well, let's go, Preds. Got to even it up tonight in Vancouver. We will not be in Vancouver, but we will be here tomorrow for Draft Eve. But we got to go right now.
But in the meantime,
in between time,
peace.